Welcome, esteemed viewers, to Explore TV. Today we delve into the life of Joseph Stalin, from humble beginnings to absolute power. Witness his rise, his rule, and his lasting impact. Join us as we explore the enigma of Stalin. Our chronicle begins in the modest town of Gori, Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire. In 1878, Iosif Vissarionovich Djugashvili was born here. His early life was marked by poverty and struggle. Gori's dusty streets and simple dwellings shaped his formative years. His father, a cobbler, struggled to provide for the family. His mother, a devout Christian, worked as a washerwoman and seamstress. She hoped he would enter the priesthood. These early years laid the foundation for his complex character. The path of childhood is seldom without its trials. For young Iosif, smallpox left his face permanently scarred. A collision with a horse-drawn carriage damaged his left arm. These adversities tempered his spirit, fostering resilience. This resilience would later define his political life. Driven by his mother's devout wishes, Iosif Djugashvili secured a scholarship to the Tiflis Theological Seminary in 1894. It was a place steeped in religious doctrine and rigorous discipline. For a time, Iosif appeared to be a diligent student. However, beneath this veneer of conformity, other currents were beginning to stir. Revolutionary ideologies, particularly Marxism, were gaining traction. This growing interest in radical politics led to his expulsion in 1899. Having cast aside the cassock for the clandestine world of revolution, the young man, now increasingly known by various aliases to evade the ever-watchful Tsarist police, plunged headfirst into the turbulent currents of underground political activism. He found his ideological home within the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, an organization dedicated to overthrowing the Romanov dynasty and establishing a socialist state. More specifically, his allegiance lay with the party's more radical faction, the Bolsheviks, led by the formidable Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, or Lenin. The Bolsheviks advocated for a disciplined, centralized party of professional revolutionaries to spearhead the workers' struggle, a vision that clearly resonated deeply with Joseph's own developing mindset. His commitment to the Bolshevik cause became all-consuming. This was not a mere intellectual pursuit, it was a way of life, demanding unwavering dedication, courage, and a willingness to sacrifice personal comfort and safety for the greater goal of societal upheaval. He immersed himself in the practicalities of revolutionary work, organizing workers, distributing illegal pamphlets, and participating in secret meetings held in shadowy backrooms and clandestine locations. The ideological fervor of the era was potent, a belief that history was on their side and that a new, more equitable world was not just possible, but inevitable, if only they fought hard enough to achieve its dawning. The life of an underground operative was one of constant peril. The Tsarist regime, with its extensive network of informants and the dreaded secret police, the Okhrana, relentlessly hunted down those who sought to challenge its authority. To survive and operate effectively in this hostile environment required discipline, cunning, and an ability to live a life of duplicity, constantly looking over one's shoulder. Joseph, who would later adopt the name Stalin, meaning man of steel, proved adept at this dangerous game, learning the essential tradecraft of the revolutionary, how to organize secretly, communicate covertly, and evade capture, skills that would serve him well. No longer merely Iosif Djugashvili from the small town of Gori, he was transforming into a hardened cadre, a soldier in Lenin's slowly growing army of dedicated insurrectionists. He moved from city to city in the Caucasus region, Batumi, Kutaisi, Tiflis, a shadowy figure fomenting dissent, organizing strikes and steadily building a reputation within the Bolshevik ranks as a reliable, if somewhat ruthless, operative. This period was his apprenticeship in the harsh school of revolution, a formative experience that shaped his worldview and honed the skills necessary for the brutal power struggles that lay ahead in his extraordinary and terrifying career. Also, a key aspect of Stalin's early revolutionary work involved mobilizing the industrial proletariat. He organized strikes in the oil fields of Baku and other industrial centers of the Caucasus. Stalin became associated with expropriations, armed robberies of banks and state treasuries. The 1907 Tiflis bank robbery was a notorious affair, netting significant funds but resulting in numerous deaths. Stalin's revolutionary zeal led to a recurring pattern of arrest, imprisonment, and exile. The vast frozen expanse of Siberia served as the Tsarist regime's ultimate punishment. Stalin found himself banished to this desolate land multiple times. The journey was an ordeal involving long, arduous travel under harsh conditions. Siberia was a prison without walls, designed to crush the spirit. The psychological toll could be immense. Many succumbed to despair, their health broken by the brutal climate. The isolation tested human endurance and ideological conviction. Yet, for some, like Stalin, it provided opportunities for reflection and study. It was a harsh crucible, tempering steel and separating the truly committed. Remarkably, Stalin repeatedly defied his exiles. He managed to escape, demonstrating extraordinary determination. These escapes required meticulous planning and incredible daring. Each successful flight added to his growing legend. These cycles of arrest, exile, and escape defined Stalin's early career. They underscored his unwavering commitment to the Bolshevik cause. Siberia became a training ground for its most determined practitioners. Each return from exile brought Stalin back more focused and prepared. The old order succumbs to revolution, giving way to a new landscape. Iosif Stalin, the man of steel, emerges among the architects of this new world. Appointed to key positions, he navigates the corridors of power with quiet efficiency. As People's Commissar for Nationalities, he gains a unique vantage point. Stalin's influence grows, brick by brick, in the fertile soil of bureaucracy. Stalin's administrative roles become the scaffolding upon which he constructs his formidable power base within the Communist Party. He is a master of the internal workings, the intricate dance of committees, appointments, and patronage. He places allies in key positions, those who control information resources or access. Stalin learns to navigate the party's internal currents with an almost preternatural skill. While prominent figures bask in the public spotlight, Stalin often operates from the less glamorous but profoundly influential positions within the party's secretariat. It is the engine room of the revolution, and he is steadily becoming its chief engineer. He builds dossiers, cultivates informants, and ensures that those loyal to him are rewarded, while those who might pose a threat are subtly sidelined or neutralized. The year 1924 marks a profound turning point. Vladimir Lenin, the architect of the Bolshevik Revolution, succumbs to his final illness. His passing creates a vacuum at the apex of power. Subtle rivalries among his potential successors surface. Stalin reveals his strategic acumen. He understands the mechanics of control. Trotsky is Stalin's significant rival. Stalin isolates Trotsky, consolidating power. By the late 1920s, Trotsky is marginalized in exile. Stalin emerges as the absolute ruler of the Soviet Union. Stalin turns his formidable will towards transforming the Soviet Union. He envisions a nation awakened as an industrial titan, launching the ambitious five-year plans, declarations of war against backwardness, driven by centralized control. The earth itself would be remade. Targets for heavy industry, coal, iron, steel, electricity. Entire cities rise, factories constructed at breakneck speed, workers driven by zeal, propaganda and coercion, fueled by national pride, ideological conviction and fear of threats. The Soviet Union must catch up or be crushed. We must make good this distance in 10 years. Natural resources harnessed with little regard for consequences. Rivers dammed, courses diverted, industry echoes across untouched regions, traditional ways swept aside for industrial needs, a testament to state power and vision, but with immense sacrifices. Concurrent with industrialization, Stalin initiates forced collectivization of agriculture. Individual peasant landholdings are deemed inefficient and a barrier to modernization. Millions of small farms are consolidated into state-controlled collective farms, or kolkhozes, and state farms, sovkhozes. This aims to increase agricultural output and feed the growing urban workforce. Party activists and urban workers enforce the new order, often lacking agricultural knowledge. Peasants are forced to relinquish their land, livestock, tools, and autonomy. Resistance is met with overwhelming force. Kulaks are targeted as class enemies, expropriated, deported, and often executed. The concept of private land ownership is systematically dismantled. Peasants slaughter their animals, leading to a catastrophic decline in livestock numbers. Villagers now find themselves under harsh state supervision. The utopian vision clashes with the grim reality of coercion and dispossession. The countryside becomes a battleground against its own people. The consequences of forced collectivization and unrealistic grain quotas are catastrophic. Agricultural production plummets across fertile lands. The state seizes grain needed for future planting and survival. This extraction leads to the Holodomor, a man-made famine. Millions perish from starvation between 1932 and 1933. In Ukraine, the suffering is particularly acute and targeted. Villages are decimated, families torn apart by hunger. The Soviet state denies the famine, sealing off affected areas. Grain continues to be exported as citizens starve. The Holodomor is a direct consequence of state policy. Confiscation of food and blacklisting of villages transform a crisis into genocide. The social fabric of the countryside is shredded. Cannibalism becomes a desperate reality. The human cost of Stalin's agricultural revolution is staggering. Industrial targets are met at the price of millions of lives. Collectivized farms struggle with inefficiency and low morale. The scars left by this period are deep and enduring. As the 1930s progress, fear settles over the Soviet Union. A chilling mist seeps into every corner of society. Stalin, now the supreme leader, embarks on the Great Purge. Loyalty is constantly questioned. The assassination of Sergei Kirov sparks mass arrests and executions. Stalin uses it to cleanse perceived enemies. The NKVD, the machinery of state terror, operates with terrifying efficiency. Arrests often happen in the dead of night. Confessions under duress become the primary evidence. No one is safe from suspicion. Old Bolsheviks find themselves accused of treason. Esteemed military commanders are declared enemies. Anyone with a questionable past can be swept up. Suspicion and denunciation become tools of survival. The infamous Moscow trials become the public face of the Great Purge. Prominent party figures are paraded, forced to confess to crimes against the state. These confessions are broadcast widely, demonstrating the vigilance of the party, yet they reveal the terrifying power of the state. Behind the scenes, the process is brutal and systematic. Interrogators use sleep deprivation, beatings, and psychological torment. Victims, broken and shattered, sign whatever is put before them. The purge becomes a self-perpetuating machine, each arrest generating new targets. The targets extend deep into the ranks of the Communist Party. The purge decimates its cadres at all levels. The Red Army's officer corps is particularly hard hit. This decapitation of military leadership has dire consequences. Ordinary citizens are caught in the maelstrom. Quotas for arrests lead to indiscriminate targeting. A careless remark or a grudge could trigger an arrest and disappearance. The Great Purge's scale is difficult to comprehend. Millions are arrested, hundreds of thousands are executed. Many perish in the Gulag's harsh conditions. The purge shatters societal trust and silences dissent. Families are destroyed, children orphaned. Stalin's cult of personality grows stronger. Stalin seeks to eliminate rivals and consolidate power. The Great Purge is a dark chapter in Soviet history. Its echoes serve as a chilling reminder of totalitarian terror. Here, in late 1930s Europe, a complex dance of power and paranoia unfolds. The air is thick with the scent of impending conflict. Iosif Stalin, cautious and cunning, observes from his Kremlin den. In August 1939, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is forged, a non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Then, June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa. Millions of German troops surge across the Soviet frontier. Stalin is reportedly plunged into shock, grappling with Hitler's treachery. The German advance is swift, brutal, seemingly unstoppable. The very existence of the Soviet Union hangs in the balance. From the depths of his initial shock, a transformed Stalin emerges. He assumes the mantle of Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the absolute authority over the vast Soviet war machine. In his radio broadcasts, he implores them to resist, to fight for every inch of Soviet soil. The Eastern Front, a theater of war unlike any seen before. Stalin issues his infamous Order No. 227. Not one step back. A brutal calculus, where individual lives are weighed against the survival of the state. The Battle of Moscow becomes a pivotal turning point. Stalin's direct involvement in military planning is a constant. The entire Soviet society is mobilized, transformed into a vast war-making enterprise. It is a total war, demanding total sacrifice, a testament to the resilience and suffering of a people. Slowly, agonizingly, the great tide of war begins to turn. Stalingrad becomes the epicenter of a monumental clash, a battle of attrition that consumes men and material, bleeding the German Sixth Army dry. The strategic importance of holding this city cannot be overstated. Here, the limits of German expansion are starkly defined. From the rubble of Stalingrad, the Red Army advances westward. The Battle of Kursk witnesses the largest tank battle in history. The Soviet steamroller pushes onward, liberating occupied territories, but at a terrible toll. The scale of the conflict on the Eastern Front remains difficult to comprehend. As victory appears certain, Stalin steps onto the global stage. At Tehran, Yalta and Potsdam, he negotiates with Allied leaders. The contours of a new world order are drawn, spheres of influence are demarcated, the map of Europe redrawn. Even in alliance, the seeds of future conflict are sown. The red flag is hoisted over the ruins of the Reichstag in Berlin, a moment of immense triumph for the Soviet Union, yet this victory has been purchased at an almost inconceivable price. Upwards of 27 million Soviet citizens perished. Stalin's leadership is forever intertwined with this colossal sacrifice. Observe now the meticulous construction of a myth, a phenomenon almost biological in its pervasiveness. Iosif Stalin, not content with mere political power, embarks on the creation of a colossal cult of personality. He is to be seen not just as a leader, but as the direct heir to Lenin, the infallible guide, the very embodiment of the revolution's destiny. This process begins subtly, building upon the existing reverence for the revolutionary fathers, but soon metastasizes, taking on a far more personal, pervasive, and ultimately suffocating dimension across the entire Soviet landscape. Titles like elaborate plumage are bestowed upon him, each designed to elevate his stature beyond that of mortal men. Father of nations, a patriarchal figure watching over his diverse Soviet family. Coryphaeus of science, the leading mind in all fields of human endeavor. Gardener of human happiness, tending to the well-being of his people. These honorifics are endlessly repeated, amplified by every organ of the state, hammered into the collective consciousness. Every success, whether agricultural or industrial, every scientific breakthrough is attributed directly to his singular genius, every achievement a testament to his unerring prophetic vision. His image becomes truly omnipresent, a constant, watchful presence in the lives of Soviet citizens. Towering statues dominate city squares, their bronze or granite forms gazing sternly towards a brighter future. Portraits adorn every public building, every factory floor, every school classroom, even humble peasant dwellings. His visage, often depicted with a hint of a smile, stern yet supposedly benevolent, stares out from posters, newspapers and film screens. The sheer, relentless scale of this visual bombardment is designed to instill not just respect, but unwavering, unquestioning loyalty and absolute obedience. Beyond the visual, the very fabric of history is rewoven to serve the cult. Official photographs are meticulously altered. Figures who have fallen from favor, former comrades now deemed enemies of the people, are expertly erased, vanishing from the historical record as if they never existed. Historical narratives are systematically rewritten, placing Stalin at the center of all pivotal revolutionary moments, exaggerating his role, diminishing others. The past, like the present and the future, is molded, sculpted, and relentlessly manipulated to reinforce the myth of the all-wise, all-powerful leader. The vast machinery of state propaganda is harnessed to nurture this burgeoning cult. Art and literature are conscripted into its service, their purpose redefined. The doctrine of socialist realism dictates the approved style-idealized depictions of Soviet life, scenes of joyous collective labor, bountiful harvests, and technological marvels, all under the wise and caring stewardship of Comrade Stalin. Writers, poets, painters and sculptors find their creative energies channeled or often coerced into a narrow prescribed path of glorification. To deviate is to risk suspicion, censure or worse. Children, the very future of the Soviet state, are immersed in this cult from their earliest, most impressionable years. Nurseries and schools become indoctrination centers. Songs are composed in his honor, poems learned by rote, textbooks filled with hagiographic accounts of his life and achievements. The ubiquitous slogan, "Thank you, Comrade Stalin, for our happy childhood," echoes through classrooms and pioneer palaces, a stark and chilling counterpoint to the often grim realities faced by many families living under his rule, particularly those touched by famine, collectivization, or the ever-present purges. A carefully crafted illusion of accessibility and empathy is projected. Propaganda often depicts Stalin as a man of simple tastes, close to the common people. Images show him interacting warmly with children, shaking hands with factory workers, or conversing earnestly with collective farmers. These portrayals aim to foster a sense of connection, to present him not as a distant autocrat, but as a benevolent protector deeply concerned with the welfare of each individual citizen. This constructed persona stands in stark, almost grotesque contrast to his increasingly isolated, paranoid, and ruthless existence within the Kremlin's fortified walls. The suppression of any alternative narrative is absolute and unrelenting. The cult demands total conformity of thought and expression. To question, to doubt, even to remain silent when praise is expected, can be interpreted as disloyalty, as a sign of hidden dissent, tantamount to treason. The message hammered home day after day through every available medium is singular and monolithic. Stalin is the source of all that is good, the ultimate protector against all internal and external enemies, the very personification of the Soviet state and its glorious destiny. It is a curious feature of such pervasive cults that genuine belief can, and often does, coexist with underlying fear. For certain segments of the Soviet population, the adoration for Stalin is undoubtedly authentic. Those who have benefited from the new opportunities offered by the Soviet system, those who have seen tangible improvements in their lives, or those who genuinely revere him as the principal architect of victory over Nazism. For these individuals, the carefully constructed image resonates deeply. The cult taps into a primal human desire for strong leadership, for a guiding hand in turbulent times. Yet beneath this shimmering surface of orchestrated adulation and genuine devotion, a chilling undercurrent of fear pervades Soviet society. The Great Purge has left indelible scars, the memory of midnight arrests, show trials, and the vast network of gulag camps. The omnipresent secret police, the NKVD, its eyes and ears seemingly everywhere, ensures that conformity is maintained. The cult is not merely sustained by propaganda and persuasion. It is buttressed, reinforced, and ultimately guaranteed by the ever-present threat of brutal, state-sanctioned terror. Consider the profound psychological impact on the individual living within this system. There arises a constant gnawing need to perform loyalty, to display the requisite enthusiasm at public rallies, to echo the approved slogans, even in the supposed privacy of one's own home. The lines between genuine belief, feigned conformity, and cynical opportunism become blurred. For many, the internalization of the cult's central tenets becomes a vital survival mechanism in a society where a careless word, a misplaced joke, or a perceived lack of zeal can have devastating, life-altering consequences. Herein lies the central paradox of Stalin's cult of personality, a leader who projects an image of boundless, almost paternal love for his people, yet who presides over a regime that inflicts unimaginable suffering, deprivation, and death upon millions of those same people. The cult, a dazzling and sophisticated instrument of control, serves to mask the brutal realities, to legitimize the terror, and to bind the individual to the state through a complex interplay of manufactured devotion and deeply ingrained fear. It is a monumental edifice built on a foundation of both genuine aspiration and profound human tragedy. The embers of World War II are barely cool before a new chill creeps across the globe. The wartime alliance between the Soviet Union and the Western powers fractures. Stalin, emboldened, seeks to project Soviet power beyond its borders. Eastern Europe falls under Soviet influence, forming a new order dictated from Moscow. Churchill observes the descent of an Iron Curtain dividing East from West. The world is reshaped into two heavily armed, ideologically opposed blocs. In August 1945, the world witnesses a terrifying dawn. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States not only bring an abrupt end to the war in the Pacific, but also usher in a new, profoundly unsettling era, the nuclear age. The United States now stands as the sole possessor of this weapon of unimaginable destructive power, a monopoly that presents a formidable challenge to Soviet ambitions and global standing. Stalin, a master of power dynamics, immediately recognizes the immense strategic implications. He orders an all-out top-priority effort to develop a Soviet atomic bomb to break this American exclusivity. The Soviet atomic bomb project, codenamed First Lightning, becomes a national crusade. Vast resources, human, material, and financial, are poured into this clandestine endeavor. Top scientists and engineers are assembled, working under immense pressure and intense secrecy, often in remote, specially constructed closed cities. Intelligence gathered from spies operating within the Manhattan Project in the West provides crucial, time-saving insights. The directive from Stalin is clear and unequivocal. Deliver the bomb and deliver it quickly. The fate of the Soviet Union, its security and its status as a global superpower is deemed to hang in the balance. Then, in August 1949, a seismic event, both literally and geopolitically. The Soviet Union successfully detonates its first atomic device at the Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. The American nuclear monopoly is shattered. The world holds its breath as it enters a new, far more dangerous phase of international relations. The balance of power, so recently defined by conventional military might, is irrevocably altered. The Cold War, already a chilling reality, now carries the ever-present, terrifying potential for mutual assured destruction, a nuclear Armageddon. This breakthrough marks not an end, but a terrifying beginning, the dawn of the nuclear arms race. Both superpowers, locked in a cycle of fear, mistrust, and ideological enmity, embark on a relentless quest to develop larger, more powerful, and more numerous nuclear weapons. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, hydrogen bombs, submarine-launched warheads, the technology of annihilation advances at a breathtaking pace. Stalin's unwavering determination to achieve not just parity but strategic superiority fuels this perilous competition, pushing humanity ever closer to the precipice of an unthinkable global catastrophe. In the aftermath of the colossal sacrifices of the Great Patriotic War, one might have anticipated a loosening of controls within the Soviet Union. However, the opposite occurs. Stalin's grip, already vice-like, tightens further in the post-war years, extending not only across the vast expanse of the USSR, but also throughout its newly acquired sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. The brief, pragmatic relaxation of ideological strictures observed during the desperate wartime struggle gives way to a renewed and intensified wave of repression. Ideological purity, as defined by the Kremlin, becomes paramount once more. The chilling campaign against ruthless cosmopolitanism is launched, targeting any perceived Western influence or deviation from the party line. Artists, writers, scientists, and intellectuals find themselves subjected to intense scrutiny, public denunciation, and often persecution. The Zhdanov doctrine, championed by Stalin's cultural enforcer Andrei Zhdanov, dictates strict adherence to socialist realism in the arts and Lysenkoism in biology, stifling genuine creativity and scientific inquiry. This cultural clampdown aims to insulate Soviet society from contaminating foreign ideas and reinforce absolute ideological conformity. Beyond Soviet borders, within the newly established satellite states of Eastern Europe, any stirrings of national independence or attempts to pursue a national path to socialism distinct from the Moscow model are met with swift and often brutal responses. Show trials, reminiscent of the Great Purge of the 1930s, are staged to eliminate potential dissidents and install loyal, subservient regimes. Purges sweep through local communist parties. The ever-present threat of direct Soviet military intervention, as would later be seen, looms large. The Berlin blockade of 1948-49 serves as a stark, early example of these Cold War confrontations, a dangerous game of brinkmanship. Stalin's final years are marked by an ever-deepening paranoia, a descent into a world of perceived plots and conspiracies. The Doctors' Plot, a fabricated conspiracy accusing prominent, mostly Jewish, Kremlin doctors of plotting to assassinate Soviet leaders, exemplifies this late-stage terror. The atmosphere of fear, already pervasive, intensifies further. The Cold War, a complex tapestry woven from threads of deep ideological conviction, historical anxieties and raw power struggles, becomes his most enduring and perilous legacy, casting a long dark shadow over international relations for decades, long after his own passing. The early days of March, in the year 1953, bore witness to a seismic shift, largely unseen by the world outside the Kremlin's formidable walls. Within his dacha at Kuntsevo, Iosif Stalin, the man of steel, succumbed to a vulnerability common to all living things. A cerebral hemorrhage struck him down, leaving him incapacitated. Fear paralyzed his inner circle, a testament to the chilling aura of invincibility he had cultivated. The architect of so much life and death now lay at the mercy of his own failing biology. The news, when it finally began to seep out, was shrouded in euphemism and ambiguity. The Soviet populace could scarcely imagine a world without his guiding hand. For those in power, the immediate aftermath was a maelstrom of uncertainty and ambition. The machine Stalin built now sputtered without its central cog. The question hung heavy: who would step into the immense vacuum left by this colossal figure? The silence from the dacha was, for a time, deafening. As the days wore on, the medical bulletins grew increasingly grave. Behind the scenes, the intricate dance of succession had already begun. The system Stalin perfected now presented a unique challenge. There was no designated heir, only powerful individuals, aware that the demise of one titan could herald the rise or fall of others. The fate of an empire teetered on the brink. Finally, on the 5th of March, the inevitable was announced. Iosif Stalin was dead. The news rippled across the Soviet Union and echoed around a world still grappling with the Cold War. His passing was not merely the death of a man, but the end of an epoch. For nearly 3 decades, he had been the unshakable, often terrifying center of Soviet life. His image, his words, his will had shaped the destinies of millions. Now that formidable presence was extinguished, leaving behind a legacy of monumental achievement, unimaginable suffering, and a future pregnant with both trepidation and a nascent, almost unthinkable hope for change. After Stalin's death, intense political maneuvering began. Leaders like Malenkov, Beria and Khrushchev presented unity, but ambition ran deep. Beria, head of the NKVD, seemed poised for power, causing fear among colleagues. Within months, Beria was arrested, tried and executed. Khrushchev outmaneuvered rivals, critiquing Stalin's cult of personality. In 1956, Khrushchev's secret speech denounced Stalin's crimes, sparking de-Stalinization. The legacy Iosif Stalin bequeathed to the Soviet Union is one of profound contradictions. He transformed an agrarian nation into a formidable superpower. The 5-year plans laid the groundwork for an economy capable of withstanding the Nazi onslaught. Stalin presided over the Soviet Union's victory in the Great Patriotic War, yet his regime's policies led to devastating famines and immense human cost. The Great Purge saw countless individuals arrested, tortured, or executed. Stalin's legacy remains fiercely contested, a subject of perpetual debate. The Soviet Union that Iosif Stalin left behind in 1953 was fundamentally remade, bearing his indelible imprint. From a war-torn agrarian society, he forged an industrial behemoth. The 5-year plans created a vast industrial base producing tanks, aircraft, and nuclear weapons. This transformation shifted the global balance of power, positioning the USSR as a superpower. The geographical and political map of Europe was profoundly altered under his stewardship. The Red Army's advance established a buffer zone of Soviet-dominated states across Eastern Europe. This Iron Curtain solidified Soviet influence, creating a bloc of nations tied to Moscow for decades. The enduring impact of Stalin's rule extends far beyond industrialization or geopolitical changes. It is deeply etched into the social fabric and collective memory. The scale of human loss through famine, purges, and the Gulag inflicted generational wounds. Pervasive fear and suspicion corroded human relationships and societal trust. Suppression of historical truth distorted the understanding of the past. This dissonance fueled later calls for transparency and justice. The reign of Joseph Stalin serves as a stark case study in the nature of absolute power and its potential to corrupt revolutionary ideals. The initial promise of a more equitable society gave way to a new form of despotism. This transformation highlights the danger when power becomes concentrated in the hands of a single individual. The mechanisms of control he perfected offer chilling lessons in state domination. His era underscores the complexities inherent in revolutionary change. The drive to modernize led to policies that inflicted unimaginable suffering. The belief that the ends justified the means found its extreme expression under Stalin. The question of whether Soviet achievements could have been realized without such a brutal toll remains a subject of intense debate. The cult of personality Stalin cultivated provides insights into leadership in totalitarian regimes. The constant veneration served to elevate the leader beyond reproach. This adulation isolated the leader from reality. The dismantling of such a cult proved to be a long and arduous process. Ultimately, Stalin's rule is a potent reminder of the fragility of freedom. His story illustrates how institutions can be perverted to oppress and how utopian visions can lead to dystopian realities. For future generations, the shadow of Stalin looms large, a testament to the dark capabilities of unchecked authority. Our journey through the tumultuous life and reign of Joseph Stalin draws to a close. From modest beginnings to near absolute power, his story is one of stark contrasts, nation-building on an epic scale, yet at a human cost that staggers the conscience. His era's echoes resonate in today's geopolitical landscapes. Subscribe to Explore TV for more deep dives into history's influential figures. Thank you for joining us on this expedition. Keep exploring the vast chronicle of human experience.